Nothing beats the classics, am I right?
We all know the timeless term of the cat and mouse cartoon, where the predator always chases the prey, but the prey always finds a way to outsmart the predator. There is no other cartoon out there that is the definitive example of the genre than Tom and Jerry. With such a simple concept, they were able to do so much to create many of the greatest slapstick comedy ever put on film. Not to mention putting Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera on the entertainment map, winning 7 Oscars throughout their lifetime, and made MGM a legitimate competitor in the animation industry throughout the 1940s and 1950s. And with its massive legacy that could almost be comparable to Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse, the cartoons also came in many different flavors that people from around the world could all enjoy. Rather it be the original classics by Hanna and Barbera, the charming designs of Chuck Jones and Gene Deitch's interesting creative choices. But like many people, I grew up watching the Tom and Jerry cartoons, and they've always been a good source of getting a good laugh. I even remember watching the Tom and Jerry Show and Tom and Jerry Kids, even if they weren't necessarily on par with their shorts.
However, that was only back during their prime with their cartoons. Unfortunately, despite the fact that they are still highly beloved to this day, and that Tom and Jerry are still considered possibly the greatest animated duo of all time, they still have some difficulty trying to adapt to the modern era with television. And don't even get me started with their direct-to-home media feature films, because I'm just gonna say right now, with their last film, I don't want to go through that again. However, if there is a way to put Tom and Jerry back to the mainstream, to return them to their former glory as cartoon stars, then they would have to do something that would be for sure able to grab everyone's attention. A major feature film made for the big screen. Okay, how about this time we do something a little different? You know, replace the musicals with some live action maybe?
For more than a decade, Warner Brothers always wanted to create a live-action animation hybrid starring the popular cat and mouse, since it was the latest trend for Hollywood to fully capitalize due to the success of 2007's Alvin and the Chipmunks. While they did manage to do so with Yogi Bear, things didn't really work out for Thomas and Jerome. But that didn't mean the Warners would give up. They tried different options for a new movie, including a fully animated film, but it wasn't until 2018 when they've settled with a Tom and Jerry movie that they were looking for, going back to the hybrid format and sprinkle in some celebrities to fill the cast. But try something new with the animation where, instead of looking like CG abominations, they would stay a lot more true to their classic look, which gave the filmmaking team the freedom to make all the crazy slapstick jokes they want.
He's toying with us.
But I will say that it has been years since I felt so much mixed feelings for a movie just from watching a trailer alone. Seriously, I have no idea what to expect out of this Tom and Jerry movie. From the looks of it, it looks like they might put in a little bit more effort than they did with the previous Tom and Jerry films, but then again, it looks like it might have some of the same vibes as the direct-to-video movies, but then again, it looks like the animation can be pretty solid, but then again, it looks like it could be the 1992 movie all over again, but then again, maybe it could be good, but then again, maybe, oh my god, I haven't even started watching this movie, and already I just feel absolutely stressed. Man, I think I really do need to calm down. Even before getting into this, I just need some time to relax. But you know what? Screw it. Might as well go into this straight and just let everything out all at once. I'm sure that could definitely help my stress.
At first, this may seem like the typically unappealing live-action animation hybrid family movie, down to the point where they're putting cartoon characters in New York City and add some originality to their cringe by having rapping pigeons during the opening credits.
Can I kick it to all the people who can quest like a tribe does?
Okay, already not off to a good start. But maybe the story will probably help pick things up, or Tom and Jerry themselves will make things better when they begin chasing each other. You'd wish that, but it unfortunately starts on a real low note and just tumbles down from there. As a slapstick-oriented comedy, it's no surprise that the story is very much lacking and is crafted more as just establishing where the duo will spread chaos and destroy everything. Granted, that doesn't mean that it didn't try to have a plot, where a girl named Kayla finds herself working at a 5-star hotel, and it's up to her to make sure that the biggest celebrity wedding of the century goes perfectly well.
And we're about to host the wedding of the century.
Do you think you're qualified to take on this position?
I shine under pressure, like a diamond. Or Rihanna.
They even gave the title characters their own personal goals that give them motivation to their actions, including Tom being an alley cat that's also an aspiring musician, and Jerry looking for a new place to call home. However, most of their goals are quickly forgotten after a few minutes, and the most that it ever feels like a legitimate story about the title characters is after the hour mark where the girl asks Tom and Jerry to learn how to get along, and even that ends abruptly just to go back to be about the grueling wedding.
Not to mention that the comedy here is just absolutely terrible. Oh, you do get some of the classic cartoony slapstick that you would expect out of Tom and Jerry, and I will admit, those moments are actually pretty enjoyable, and they did give me a good laugh when they do actually come. But when it's the humans' turn to actually go and do some comedy, and believe me when I say that that actually does happen more often than you would probably be comfortable with, then those are the times when the worst of the gags and the jokes that you would expect out of these hybrid movies that are made for families and stuff like that, that's when they would actually go and appear. And you name it, they're all in there. The pop culture references, you know what I mean, the stuff like with the Instama books and the TikToks, poop jokes, characters just being flat out stupid, you name it, all these gags appear in case you would need a good dose of a major headache. But then again, don't worry, if that is not enough for you, then how about we just do something a little bit extra? How about we go and make the characters so despicably vile?
I mean, I get it. Their shtick is to chase and outsmart each other, so they kinda have to be dicks to one another. But that still doesn't excuse how almost every character, or at least the main ones, are so mean-spirited, especially to set them up to have everyone at the hotel. Kayla, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, had to con her way into getting that job. Tom pretended to be a blind pianist to establish how he's trying to catch his dreams, and Jerry steals anything and everything in order to get what he wants and to have a luxury lifestyle. This isn't even worth mentioning Michael Pena as this douchey straight man that is always on edge, Rob Delaney as the dumb head of the hotel that believes everything that Kayla says to him, Ken Jeong being an angry perfectionist chef, and the groom of the marriage is way too over his head thinking about how to make the wedding perfect instead of listening to his future wife. Oh, and did I forget to mention the amount of overacting from the cast where they try to be more cartoony than the cartoons themselves?
Why do I see temporary employees socializing on hotel property in the middle of their shift?
We were just...
Terrence was celebrating. You know, the hotel's most problems taken care of.
Oh, yeah, congratulations. Teamwork is dreamwork, right?
Yeah, it's taken care of, right, Tom?
Also, other than Tom and Jerry eventually agreeing to work together, the characters are all just one-dimensional tropes with no redeeming quality by either constantly acting like an idiot or selfishly take advantage of others just for their own personal gain. It's kind of like they took the relationship of Tom and Jerry and include that on the entire cast, but only the parts that are purely toxic.
Now, I know that technically the things that I am heavily criticizing here are not the main selling points of this movie. I think it is safe to say that nobody's going to be coming into this trying to look for some kind of riveting plot line or complex human characters going through this massive arc that is well developed and stuff like that. Yeah, we ain't expecting anything like that. If people want to see a movie called Tom and Jerry, then what they are going to look for is Tom and Jerry. And that is what the animation is going to provide the most. In fact, the animation is a major promise to the audience that they will do everything they can in order to stay true to that classic style. That's the big thing that makes this movie stand out compared to the other live-action animation hybrid family films. But here's the big question of all this. Did the animation actually succeed in what it's trying to do? Is it actually good enough to try to make things up for some of the movie's shortcomings? Well, I will say that the animation can actually be very good. But the answer is no, absolutely not.
Okay, here's the most conflicting thing about this movie. On one hand, I get what they're trying to do, and it is quite ambitious to try to make computer animation look faithfully like 2D in the style of the MGM shorts. Already a plus that they don't look like furry monstrosities. I will give it that it does have the right resources in order to pull it off. You could tell that the animators are capable of recreating that classic style, and the animation is at its best when Tom, Jerry, and other animals get crazy and unleash their wacky cartoon physics.
Style by the beach full of technology, complete sights and new heights after I get deep.
However, there is a major catch to the look. As great as the designs are and can successfully capture that classic Tom and Jerry style, it happens more often than not when the 2D illusion is lost, and it's noticeable that the characters are actually 3D rendered models whenever they make any subtle movements, which is a jarring contrast to the style that the film wanted to accomplish and what the animation of Tom and Jerry is all about. Maybe it was for budgetary reasons, but this technique that only sometimes works does raise the question. If they really wanted to make the characters look like they were hand-drawn, then why wasn't this hand-drawn animated in the first place? If they're doing that for the next Space Jam, then this movie doesn't have the excuse to pretend like they're doing the same thing with CG. On top of that, I get the idea that this is a live-action world where all the animals are cartoon characters. I'll give it that it is a clever idea. But as smart as the concept is, the execution ends up making the tunes look more out of place with the narrative expecting the audience to just accept it without any form of explanation, making the whole movie look like some kind of modified Grand Theft Auto game. If it weren't for the fact that they don't talk, I'd almost expect Jerry making fun of Tom's yee-yee-ass haircut.
Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop with that brain surgeon or lawyer she with.
What?
Unfortunately, the animation is the best thing about this movie, and possibly the only good thing that this movie can offer. And even at that, it would constantly flip-flop from being enjoyably well-made to awkwardly out of place. But ultimately, if there is one problem with this movie, if there is one source of everything that pretty much destroyed any chances from having this be an enjoyable feature film, then it would have to be the platform that it stood on. It's the fact that it's trying to make itself a big deal, that what it wants to do is offer so much more than you would probably expect from those direct-to-home media feature films. And yet, when you do think about it, when you do think about the way that this Tom and Jerry movie is actually built, is there actually that much of a difference between those DVD movies and this Tom and Jerry movie?
I get it. It could be a real challenge to make a movie out of a cartoon franchise that's literally just about a cat and mouse chasing each other. Not impossible, but you barely get much to work with. And yet, their format is so minimal because they were built for a platform that doesn't require that much in the first place. In cartoons, you could make them as simple as you want. As long as their crazy antics can make you laugh for about 7 to 8 minutes, then they succeeded in their job. But when you have a movie that's about 90 to 100 minutes, silly gags and wacky animation alone are not enough to keep audiences invested the whole way through. And that's what's been the issue with most of these Tom and Jerry movies, including this one. With such a simple concept with these characters, they always have to build a movie around Tom and Jerry, filling it with some convoluted plot and a bunch of random characters. However, they can't work on those too much because they still have to keep the focus on Tom and Jerry and make sure they still have some prominent moments where they chase each other, rather if they connect to the plot or not. And as a result, the stories are often treated as an afterthought, leaving them to be, again, predictable and just build-ups for the next scene with the duo, and the characters feel like pointless generic add-ons that take time away from what people actually want to see, making them more frustrating than they already are. Even if this movie tries to elevate its quality with a different style of animation and include a bunch of celebrities in live action, it is still dependent on the same formula that plagued those DVD movies.
But I will admit, were there times that I actually did enjoy myself watching this movie? Of course I did. Whenever Tom and Jerry do their classic routine, those are the times when it actually does feel like a legitimate homage to the classic cartoons, and they can give me a genuine good laugh. However, those moments are just way too far and few between, and especially, it still doesn't change the fact that in order to get to those moments, I still had to sit through so much of the same tedious live-action animation hybrid family films that are no different than the stuff that I would get from the Smurfs, Yogi Bear, and Alvin and the Chipmunks. And yeah, sure, maybe there are going to be people out there who will probably think that I'm exaggerating when I say this, but if I could be very honest, if I would have the choice, I would rather go and pick watching another one of their DVD movies than to watch this again.
Sounds crazy, I know, but at the very least, those movies are aware of the platform that they were given. You can't be too mad at it when the quality can be about what you would expect out of a film that was released straight to home media. With the 2021 Tom and Jerry movie, however, this is a case where it's trying to bite off way more than it could chew, resulting in another mind-numbing Hollywood live-action animation hybrid family film that wastes so much time just to give little of what audiences would expect out of a feature inspired by classic cartoons. Sure, its animation style is bold by trying to pay homage to its roots, and there are moments when the style does work to its advantage. However, there are also times when the visuals hinder the film, accompanied by a dull and easily predictable story, and a whole cast of distasteful characters played by actors who gave their performance so much cheese that not even Jerry finds it appealing. Personally, I just don't see the point in watching this when you can save your time watching the cartoons where they give you exactly what you want and do a much better job at it. In fact, Warner Brothers actually did put out a bunch of new Tom and Jerry shorts from the same people that made the new Looney Tunes cartoons, and they are actually great. If anything, I recommend to watch them instead, because the team behind those tunes did a much better job at keeping the spirit of Tom and Jerry alive than the people in charge of this blunder. If I have to give this a rating, then it's gonna be a 3 out of 10 with the Animat seal of garbage. There's a lot of bad Tom and Jerry movies out there, but not even they deserve to be in something like this.
But like I said, I do understand that this movie is actually a major challenge to go and make. You honestly have no idea how difficult it is in order to go and make a solid feature film while at the same time trying to have it be an homage to classic cartoons that made people laugh for generations. You have to make sure you find the right blend between the two. Otherwise, it ends up becoming way too easy to fall into one trap or another. On one hand, you can focus so much on trying to make a movie that you would almost forget that it is actually based on cartoons, that you would do an entirely original movie that ends up having nothing to do with the cartoons that they're actually based on. Or, a bit in the case of Tom and Jerry here, that you would put in so much minimal effort onto crafting the story, onto building up new characters, onto actually making a movie, to the point that all you really want to do is just try to make one giant cartoon. And usually, that doesn't go well. Now, am I saying that there is no way that you could make a good movie out of Tom and Jerry? Absolutely not. There is definitely a way that you can do so. but it is a major challenge in itself. It requires a very special talent in order to go and make a solid feature film, in order to make a good work of art just with the very minimal amount of materials that would be offered to you. But I will say this though, I guess it doesn't really matter if this movie actually does turn out to be good or not, because, well, like I said before, nothing beats the classics. See you later, dudes.